إن الحمد لله وحده الصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وبعد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Which are important in order to achieve the success of dunya and success of the akhirah. So in our today's session, we are going to discuss about one of the important aspects of faith, one of the important and one of the greatest aspect of the faith, that is al-yaqeen. Yaqeen is generally translated as certainty. And in Islamic context, it is considered to be the summit of the many stations by which the path of wilayah is fully completed. In order to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once a person knows his purpose of life, then he has to walk a long journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yaqeen is the thing which takes a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yaqeen, or certainty, or the full conviction, is essentially, it is immensely important for the soul. Without the yaqeen, there can be no iman. Without the yaqeen, there can be no any amal. So yaqeen is something which is fundamental for the faith. We will discuss its definition and importance as well. The concept is that the whole body of Islam rests, the whole body of one's iman rests upon the yaqeen. If yaqeen is stronger, all other branches of faith are stronger. If yaqeen is weaker, all other branches of faith are weaker. So it is something which is fundamentally important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, while talking about the attributes of the characteristics of the men of taqwa, the people of taqwa and good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those who establish the salah, those who pay the zakah, and وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ, they have the full faith, certain faith in akhirah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ, these are the people, عَلَى هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ, they are upon the guidance from their Lord. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, and these are the people who are surely successful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects the amal with the yaqeen, and then he connects the success with the yaqeen. So yaqeen, it guarantees the good amal, and yaqeen, it guarantees a success. According to this verse in Surah Al-Luqman, verse number 5, Allah mentions there that الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects the success and the yaqeen together. So without the yaqeen, there can be no success. The true success lies in the yaqeen. And what's yaqeen? How can we define the yaqeen? As I said, linguistically, the translation of yaqeen is simply certainty, or the true conviction, the strong conviction. But the definition of yaqeen is, Sheikh Sajad Ahmad in his TAFSIR, he mentions that yaqeen can be defined as هو العلم التام الذي ليس فيه أدنى شك الموجب للعمل. What's yaqeen? It's al-ilm al-tam, the sound knowledge, the perfect knowledge, الذي ليس فيه أدنى شك, which doesn't contain the least amount of the shak, least amount of the doubt. There's no even iota of doubt involved in that sound knowledge. Al-mujib lil-amal, which necessitates the amal, which necessitates the action. So it is based on the knowledge. So here we have to make a difference between the blind faith and the yaqeen. Yaqeen is based on the knowledge. While it's blind faith, it can be based on the superstitious thinking. There are many people who believe in such things which doesn't exist at all, but they believe in that to the level of conviction, but that cannot be called as yaqeen. Yaqeen is something which is based on the knowledge, and that knowledge is based on the truthfulness. That knowledge is not something based on the superstitious thinking. Rather, this knowledge is based on the sound facts. That's why الَّذِي لَيْسَ فِيهِ أَدْنَى شَكٍّ, which doesn't contain an iota of doubt, which doesn't contain any amount of doubt. There are two opposite poles. Yaqeen means certainty. Yaqeen means certainty, and opposite to yaqeen is shak. Shak is doubtfulness. When a person develops a doubt, so those who develop the doubt, they don't have the yaqeen. As I said, there are two opposite poles which cannot be merged together. Yaqeen and doubt cannot reside together. Where there is yaqeen, there is no doubt. Where there is doubt, there is no yaqeen. So yaqeen is something, that's what the definition says. Huwa al-ilmu tam is a sound knowledge, the perfect knowledge. So it has nothing to do with the superstitious thinking. It has nothing to do with the dogma. It has nothing to do with the myths. So mythology, dogma, superstitious thinking is all taken out of the definition of yaqeen. There's a difference between the iman of the Muslims and the iman of others, because they believe, fundamentally they believe in mythology. They believe in superstitious thinking. They have belief in so many multiple gods and goddesses, which doesn't exist at all. And even the atheists, their dogma is that there is no God. Though intellectually, academically, there's no any sound argument with them. It's all their myth. It's all their superstitious thinking. They say the religious people, they are superstitious. I say they are superstitious because they are believing something which doesn't exist at all. So sound knowledge which is based on the facts, which is supported by the arguments. Such arguments that there's no any argument left with you. That's al-ilmu tam, the sound knowledge, the perfect knowledge. And that's fundamental for the yaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. This is a fundamental reality of the word. Fundamental reality of the word. You cannot deny this. They are all logical, academic, intellectual arguments for this. So this is based on yaqeen because it is supported by the sound knowledge. On the other hand, when people say there are multiple gods and goddesses, when the people say there is no God, their thinking is based on dogma. It is based on superstitious thinking. It is based on mythology. So yaqeen is something we can say more intellectual. Al-ilmu tam is a sound knowledge. الَّذِي لَيْسَ فِيهِ أَدْنَى شَكٍّ, which doesn't have least amount of the doubt. Al-mujib lil-amal. And a person doesn't have any doubt about it, then and only then he works accordingly. He practices that accordingly. So it necessitates the amal. So men of yaqeen always are men of practice. It's not that the people are having the yaqeen and they don't practice. They don't perform the good deeds. It triggers the good deeds. It's instrumental for practicing of the good deeds. So without the yaqeen, there cannot be the good deeds. The yaqeen, it triggers the good deeds. And Sheikh Ash'arawi rahimahullah, he was one of the great contemporary scholars. He passed away. He says, he defines the yaqeen as إِنَّ الْيَقِينَ هُوَ تَصْدِيقُ الْأَمْرِ تَصْدِيقًا مُؤَكَّدًا. He defines the yaqeen as تَصْدِيقُ الْأَمْرِ, that you testify a particular thing. You testify تَصْدِيقًا مُؤَكَّدًا, with a firm confirmation. You confirm a thing with full certainty. بحيث لا يدفو إلى الذهن ليناقش من جديد. In a way that you believe in that particular thing with full certainty in a way that there is no question of rethinking. You don't have to think it anyway. Means once you believe in it, بعد أن تكون قد علمته من مصادر تثق بصدق. After you believe that particular thing, on the basis of the sources you have the full trust upon. You trust upon those sources and then you get the knowledge from it. And after receiving the knowledge from that particular source which you trust upon, which are trustworthy for you, and then you never think again about it. There is no room for rethinking. So whether this is or not. Once you say that there is once you say La ilaha illallah, once you believe that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there should be no any rethinking about it. Once you are sure about that the true message of Allah is only the Islam, the only true way of salvation is Islam. Inna deen inda Allah al-Islam, the only acceptable way of life is Islam. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Whoever adopts any way other than the way of Islam, that will never be accepted of him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He shall be among the losers on the day of judgment. In the Akhirah. Once you believe this, then there should be no any rethinking. Maybe some others, they may also be true. This is weakness in the yaqeen. One of the biggest challenge, we can say, or one of the biggest fitna, biggest trial in our modern day era is the concept of perennial philosophy, which says that we respect all the religions. They may be also true. Ours is true, Islam is true, but others may be also true. This is not yaqeen. There's fasad in the yaqeen. There's corruption in the yaqeen. Yaqeen demands that we should wholly and solely believe that the only way of Allah, which is acceptable, only way of God, which is acceptable to Him is Islam. Once we achieve this level, then there should be no need of rethinking. If we rethink, it means there is some problem in the yaqeen. That's what Sheikh Sharawi says that بعد أن تكون قد علمته من مصادر تثق. When you get this from the sources, reliable sources, trustworthy sources, then you don't give a second thought to it. So yaqeen is everything. And the importance of yaqeen is that some of our aslaf, some of the salaf, they said that al-yaqeen al-iman kullu. Yaqeen is the whole faith. Faith and iman wholly and solely depends upon the yaqeen. As-sabru nisful iman. Patience is half of the faith, while as al-yaqeen al-iman kullu. Whole of the faith, entire faith rests upon the yaqeen. Sabr is nisf, patience is nisf, and yaqeen is all. And this has been also mentioned that it has been referred to as to the Prophet as well, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but that the narration is very weak. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, in his one of the beautiful book, Madarijus Salikin, which I discussed before also, he mentions that in Madarijus Salikin, he says that al-yaqeen min al-iman bi manzilat al-ruh min al-jasad. The importance of iman, the importance of yaqeen for the iman is as that of the ruh for the body. Can we conceive of any body without the ruh? No, there can be no any body without the ruh. Yes, there can be a body without the ruh, that is of dead people. So there can be no any person who is alive and then without the ruh. Likewise, any believer, he cannot be without the yaqeen. If he hasn't the yaqeen, then it means he hasn't the iman. Because this is fundamental for the faith. This is we can say, the cornerstone for the iman. That's al-yaqeen. وَبِهِ تَفَادَلَ الْعَارِفُونَ. The levels of believers, the levels of arifin, those who recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are determined on the basis of yaqeen. We know that the level of people are not same in terms of yaqeen. Some people have stronger yaqeen, some have moderate level, some have weaker level, and even some don't have at all. Sheikh Abdullah al-Muzani rahimahullah, one of our aslaf, he said that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, he did not excel the ummah because of many salah, because of too much salah, because of too much zakah, because of too much fasting. No, it was وَلَكِنْ بِشَيْءٍ وَقَرَ فِي الْقَلْبِ. It was because of something which was in his heart, that is yaqeen. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he surpassed other Sahaba. Not because of jihad, not because of salat, not because of zakah. There are many people who performed more salah than Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu in the Ummah. But they can never surpass Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq. There are many people who spend their life in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they cannot compare themselves with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. But that's what Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah, وَبِهِ تَفَادَلَ الْعَارِفُونَ, that it is because of the yaqeen that the levels of the believers are determined. Levels of the believers are determined on the basis of yaqeen. And وَبِهِ تَنَافَسَ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ, and it is this thing for which the people competed with one another. They wanted to get more and more yaqeen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And وَهُوَ مَعَ الْمَحَبَّةِ رُكْنَانِ لِلْإِيمَانِ, and yaqeen together with the mahabba, which we discussed in our last session. Mahabba. وَهُوَ مَعَ الْمَحَبَّةِ, so yaqeen along with the mahabba, the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, رُكْنَانِ لِلْإِيمَانِ, they are important integrals of iman. There are two important articles of faith, yaqeen and mahabba. So without the yaqeen and mahabba, iman is immensely weaker. وَعَلَيْهِمَا يَنْبَنِي وَبِهِمَا قِوَامُ, that iman is based on these two important integrals, that is yaqeen and mahabba. وَبِهِمَا قِوَامُ, and its strength is because of these two things. وَهُمَا يُمِدَّانِ سَائِرَ الْأَعْمَالِ الْقَلَبِيَّةِ وَالْبَدَنِيَّةِ, it's because of these two things that all the amal, whether bodily or actions of the heart, they rest upon them, they depend upon them. More you have the yaqeen, more you have the mahabba of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will derive the pleasure in performing more and more salah. You will derive the pleasure reciting more and more Quran, making a lot of dhikr, spending a lot in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing all sacrifices for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a smiling face. There will be no any frowning upon your face. Why? Because this is based on yaqeen and mahabba. Yaqeen and mahabba together strengthen the iman. Once the iman and yaqeen is stronger, it helps the amal to be stronger. One of the important thing, we can see one of the fundamental thing when we see that in our period, the people are away from amal. One of the biggest reason, one of the main, or we can say major factor, is that is a weakness in the yaqeen. Is weakness in the yaqeen in the akhirah. That's why, because we are in a state of vacillation, we are vacillating from whether this is or not, whether this is true or not. When a person is not having the sound yaqeen, sound iman, and strong conviction, then he won't do it. As far as dunya is concerned, we know that therein lies our success. We have the conviction for this. Wealth is my solution. Having high position in dunya is my solution to all my problems. Then for this, we can go to any damn extent. We can be awake for nights together. Why? Because we know that this is the way to get it. So as far as yaqeen is concerned, yaqeen and mahabba, Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah, that it is on the basis of these two things, that the a'mal of the heart, al-a'mal al-qalbiyya wal-badaniyya, al-a'mal al-qalbiyya wal-badaniyya, that the actions of the heart and actions of the body, they depend on the two integrals, that is yaqeen and mahabba. وَهُمَا يُثْمِرَانِ كُلَّ عَمَلٍ صَالِحٍ, they breed every good deed. They are the good deeds are the product of these two things. وَعِلْمٍ نَافِعٍ, and the beneficial knowledge comes from there. We always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, you give us a beneficial knowledge, ilm nafi'. So ilm nafi' is that you have the strong yaqeen with you. And yaqeen, laysa ba'dahu shak, that there is no need doubt after it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Sahaba, ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, that they are the believers, alladhina amanu, when they believe, walam yalbisu imanahum wa summa lam yartabu, once they profess the faith, once they confirm the faith, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا, then they don't fall in doubt. They don't have any sort of doubt. And the doubt is of, you can say, of high level of yaqeen is there, which leaves no room for the doubt, which leaves no space for the doubt. And then he says, وَهُدًى مُسْتَقِيمٌ, and this is the right path, right guidance. And Sayyidina Hassan says radiallahu anhu that أَنَّ أَبَا بَكْرَ خَطَبَ النَّاسِ. One day Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he delivered a khutbah, he delivered a sermon. فقال, and in his sermon he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, يا أيها الناس, O people, O mankind, إن الناس لم يؤتوا في الدنيا خيرا من اليقين والمعافاة. That people are not given in this dunya, people are not given anything better than two things. Means these are the most important and most dearest things which a person can have. One, al-yaqeen. One is the true conviction. And second is wal-mu'afat. Mu'afat is that well-being. Well-being in iman, well-being in the wealth, well-being in the health. Mu'afat or afiyah is a comprehensive term. So those who are blessed with these things, there is nothing which can compare these two things. فَاسْأَلُوهُمَا Allah. Then you ask these two things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because these are the two things which are, there's nothing which can compare with it. One is yaqeen and second is al-mu'afat, overall well-being. So as far as the yaqeen is concerned, there are many levels of the yaqeen. So there are kinds of the yaqeen. We'll discuss the kinds of the yaqeen later on. Firstly, we discuss about the levels of the yaqeen. As far as levels of the yaqeen are concerned, so the yaqeen maratib, there are different levels of the yaqeen. The first one is al-ilm, the knowledge, which I said before, that without a true knowledge, without a sound knowledge, there cannot be any sort of yaqeen. Any yaqeen based on sound knowledge leads a person to perfect iman. On the other hand, if there is no sound knowledge and a person is having a conviction, then that conviction may be based on mythology, may be based on myth, may be based on dogma, may be based on some superstitious thinking. The true iman is based on the sound knowledge. That's why the first martaba, al-martabatul ula, the first level of yaqeen is knowledge. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So know that that there is no God but Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here in this verse clearly says, no, means you gain the knowledge of this thing. أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. That there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Islam is based on the knowledge, true knowledge. The first revelation came, iqra, means read. What Prophet said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ma ana biqari, I'm not going to read. Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, iqra, read. Prophet said, ma ana biqari, I'm not going to read. And he said, iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Then Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam read. So when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam referred the knowledge to Allah, iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra by the name of thy Lord who created. Khalaq al-insana min alaq. Who created the man from the alaq. Alaq is you can say the congealed or a piece of flesh. A piece of when the blood is coagulated after 40 days, when it is coagulated, it is known as alaq, or leech-like substance. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ اقْرَأْ وَرَبُّكَ الْأَكْرَمُ. Read, and your Lord is the most honored. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, when he connected the knowledge to Allah, then Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he did. So one important lesson for us is that any knowledge which doesn't connect a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not beneficial. So any knowledge which connects a person to Allah is beneficial. And sometimes it may be some other the disciplines of knowledge which are other than the Islam, like the positive sciences. If a person is studying the physics and he's studying the physical phenomena, this may lead a person to Allah. If a person is botanist, he's studying the botanical world, the trees and plants and all their morphology and other things, it may lead a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are other disciplines of the knowledge other than the Islamic sciences, which can lead a person to Allah. But I have discussed that before, that all these disciplines of knowledge can lead a person to Allah, provided a person is not having any preoccupied thought. When you study this universe or any part of this universe impartially, with full neutrality, there is no any preoccupied thought, then definitely it will lead a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, it's not sufficient. Then it can lead us to Allah, but it cannot tell us what's my purpose of life. It cannot tell me what's right and what's wrong. It cannot tell me what's truth and what's false. For that, I need the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So the first level of yaqeen is the first al-martabatul ula. The first level, it starts from the knowledge, sound knowledge. Sound knowledge of what? Sound knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sound knowledge of halal and haram. Sound knowledge of what I am supposed to do and what I am supposed to be stayed away from. Unless and until a person doesn't know the limits of halal and haram, he cannot achieve the yaqeen. It's the yaqeen that helps him to determine the boundary line, that what he is supposed to perform and what he is supposed to stay away from. If a person mixes up, he is confused with these things, he cannot have the true yaqeen. So the knowledge here is multidimensional. It means knowledge of Allah, knowledge of oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowledge of attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His names, and then knowledge of Sharia. If a person is having a lot of belief, a strong belief, but at the same breath he doesn't know what the Sharia is, what the halal and haram is, then his yaqeen is, the position of his yaqeen is deflating. So yaqeen demands the true knowledge, the sound knowledge. So without the sound knowledge, we cannot have the true level of the yaqeen. The first thing is, in order to achieve the yaqeen, the first thing is having the true knowledge or the sound knowledge. Sound knowledge of names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then knowing the Quran and the Sunnah, some essentials, and then specifically knowing the halal and haram. Without knowing the lawful and unlawful, a person cannot have the stronger level of yaqeen, because it is the yaqeen which necessitates the amal. Amal has two parts: one, to be performed; second, to be stayed away from. So what is to be performed, what a person has to be stay away from, cannot be determined without having the knowledge. That's why he must have the knowledge of halal and haram. That's immensely important. Not the whole body of halal and haram, specifically the field he is dealing with, because it is difficult for all the people to know all the whole body of halal and haram, because it's too vast. But minimum obligation upon us is that we must know the field I am working in. I must know the halal and haram regarding my field. That much amount of knowledge is obligatory. And to know the overall body of halal and haram, that is supplementary. That's optional. That's specific for the ulama, that they must know, because they have to guide the people. As far as the minimum level is concerned, that minimum level of halal and haram is that I must know in my profession, in my job, in my particular sphere, what is halal and what is haram. There's a minimum level of obligation. That will determine a person's yaqeen. If he doesn't know about it, then he may be performing so many bad deeds and he doesn't know about it. And yaqeen is brutally affected by the bad actions. If a person performs bad deeds, it affects the yaqeen. As we are the followers of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we believe that al-Iman yazid wa yanqus. Iman is increased, Iman is decreased. Yazidu bil ta'ah. It is increased with the obedience of Allah, with the good amal. Wa yanqusu bil ma'siyah, and it is decreased with the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, when you perform good amal, you feel the joy in the heart. Whenever you perform a good deed, you feel a joy, a bliss in the heart. And it helps a person to increase his iman. On the other hand, when a person performs a bad deed, then definitely his iman is decreased. Iman is decreased, yaqeen is decreased. So they are interconnected things. So first thing is knowledge. The first martaba, or the first level, or first station, or the first stage of yaqeen is al-ilmu, the sound knowledge. And second is husnul tawakkul. Husnul tawakkul, that's a reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perfect reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A perfect trust. Trust and a reliance. There's a second level of yaqeen. Second station of yaqeen. Or second stage of yaqeen. So tawakkul and yaqeen are interconnected. What is tawakkul? Tawakkul is complete reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Complete trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yaqeen and tawakkul are interconnected. So perfect reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at-tawakkul. And as far as our trust in Allah, yes, our full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is what we call as tawakkul. So, and there's a close relationship between tawakkul and the yaqeen. Prophet said sallallahu ta'ala in one of the ahadith, Prophet said that لَوْ تَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ لَا رَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرُ تَغْدُو خِمَاسًا وَتَرُوهُ بِطَانًا. لَوْ تَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ, if you trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way He deserves to be trusted. If you trust upon Allah the way He deserves to be trusted, لَوْ تَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ لَا رَزَقَكُمْ, He will feed you, He will provide you the rizqi, He will provide you the provision. Kama yarzuqut tayr, as He provide the food to the birds. Taghdu khimasa, when they go in the morning, they go empty stomach. And when they go, there's no one in their mind that we go to that shop, we go to that place. There's no one in the mind. It is just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So taghdu khimasa, when they go in the morning, they go empty stomach. وَتَرُوهُ بِطَانًا, but when they return in the evening, they come with a full and saturated stomach. Prophet said, if you develop such a trust upon Allah, you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide you from such ways you could have never expected of. مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, a person would have never expected of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide from such ways, from such things. So yaqeen and tawakkul are two important things. So second level of yaqeen is having full reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whatever you want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have the full determination that Allah will give you that very particular thing. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadir, one of His attributes is qadir, is fully capable of doing anything. Problems is for us, weakness is with us, different constraints are with us, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His amr is just bainal kafi wa noon. Means his command is just in between kaf and noon. What is kaf and noon? Kun. He has to say just kun and it happens. So His command is between kaf and noon and nothing else. For us, we need, in order to do any particular thing, we need the resources, we need the material, we need the pre-existing planning. Then and only then we after making so many efforts. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is such a master who doesn't need anything, who doesn't require anything, who doesn't depend upon anything. He has to say it, kun, fayakun. It happens. So husnul tawakkul is immensely important. And tawakkul is that we have full trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a strong relationship with the yaqeen. Tawakkul always depends upon the yaqeen. If there is weakness in the yaqeen, definitely there will be weakness in the tawakkul. So tawakkul depends upon the yaqeen. As I said, the yaqeen depends upon the sound knowledge, and the tawakkul depends upon the yaqeen. You have the more yaqeen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, more your stronger tawakkul is. And if a person is having a weaker yaqeen, definitely his tawakkul will be weaker.
Subhanallahi bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.